and the place and the city and the heart and the mountain and the refuge and the cave and the valley and the land and the sea and the island and the meadow where mention of God hath been made, and His praise glorified. Where mention of God has been made, and His praise glorified. Good morning, everyone out there, and happy Nowruz. It's a day late because Nowruz was actually yesterday, but I'm saying it anyway because I haven't seen a lot of you since last week. So happy Nowruz to Tarnay and Kambiz, who are there in the Zoom stream. Happy Nowruz, Nini. She's like, what's that mean? Happy Nowruz, Daryl.
Happy Nowruz.
It's a day late, but folks, for anyone who doesn't know why we're saying Happy Nowruz is actually Nowruz is New Year. This is the time of the Persian New Year and consequently the Baha'i New Year. As you know, different cultures celebrate New Year's at different times based on different calendars. Was yesterday the first day of spring, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's why it's Nowruz. The first day of spring was yesterday. So yeah, I think it's still appropriate to say. I actually have a Nowruz song that I'm tempted to play, but I won't. I'm tempted to play, but I won't.
So Nowruz is decided when is the first day of the spring?
Yes. Yeah, the first day of spring is Nowruz. Mm-hmm. Now today.
But then it's different day in different country.
What you mean, first day of spring?
Yeah.
Nowruz is the spring equinox. That is when the daylight and the night are equal. So you have 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night.
Yeah, what he said.
So what I meant is not having Nowruz yesterday in Florida could be different than in New Zealand.
Yes.
Okay.
There's our science lesson for the day. Today, folks, we're gonna. Who's the sea there? Oh, that's the Clearwater site, which is Tarnay. Okay. I don't know where everyone else is this morning, but maybe we haven't all
Sleeping
adjusted.
in.
That's it. We haven't adjusted to the time change as of yet. But I will say that today we're going to be talking about a topic that is something that I think in this world is a pretty common topic, and that is suffering. Yes, suffering. Have you done any suffering lately, Daryl?
Every day.
Yeah. Have you done any suffering lately, Dee?
Every day.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, and some of the passages today are actually going to, it's all about why we suffer and how we should handle suffering and so forth. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We have some passages coming to you from Abdu'l-Baha, from Shoghi Effendi, of course, Baha'u'llah, but also even one short passage coming from the House of Justice. And I do want to point out, I'm pointing that out specifically because we've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. Daryl and I, not ministers. No one in the Baha'i faith is a minister. There is no special set aside class of clergy or anything like that. But we do have a governing body that is very well structured. And at the very top of that governing body is the House of Justice. And so we do have a passage here from the House of Justice, and we also consider that to be the House of Justice is the governing body, the head governing body for the entire Baha'i faith around the world, and we consider what they send out to us, which they send out regular letters and so forth, as part of the Baha'i revelation. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. I just wanted to point that out. And Geeti has just joined us. We can't see her on screen, but she's here, so I have to say good morning to Geeti. Good morning, Geeti.
Good morning, Geeti.
Yes.
Can I give out my 2 cents about suffering?
Sure, you can give your 2
As
cents.
a Christian aspect.
Absolutely.
Suffering is not bad. It's maybe it's on our human feeling or body or physical or mental. It could be bring out some sadness or bad feelings. But the truth of suffering is not bad because it draws us closer to God.
And that's our lesson for today, folks. You all have yourselves a good day. We've enjoyed it.
Okay, no, but I'm wondering what is,
Yeah, well, you're going to find out that you are right in line with what we're going to be sharing today.
Okay, all right.
So thanks for the spoiler. And hello, Farah. Farah just signed on with us. So hello, Farah. So we're going to go ahead and get started. These first few passages are coming from Abdu'l-Baha and Shoghi Effendi. Why don't you go ahead and read through 24.4, Daryl, please. Or you know what? We didn't start with a prayer, although the song is indeed a prayer. But maybe we need to start with another prayer. So Daryl, you grabbed your prayer book. So
I did.
Yeah, I'll let you do that.
Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, lead them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord.
Thank you, Daryl. Okay, and now again,
so to get started with suffering, all the sorrow and grief that exists come from the world of matter. The spiritual world bestows only joy. If we suffer, it is the outcome of material things, and all the trials and troubles come from this world of illusion. God alone adoreth all things and is all powerful. Why then does he send trials to his servants? The trials of men are of 2 kinds. The consequences of his own actions. If a man eats too much, he ruins his digestion. If he takes poison, he becomes ill or dies. If a person gambles, he will lose his money. If he drinks too much, he will lose his equilibrium. All these sufferings are caused by the man himself. It is quite clear, therefore, that certain sorrows are the result of our own deeds.
Do tell.
Other sufferings there are, which come upon the faithful of God. Consider the great sorrows endured by Christ and his apostles. If people only realized it, The inner life of the spirit is that which counts. But they are so blinded by desires and so misled that they have brought upon themselves all the suffering we see at present in the world. We are living in a day of reliance upon material conditions. Men imagined that the great size and strength of a ship, the perfection of machinery, or the skill of a navigator will ensure safety. But these disasters sometimes take place that men may know that God is the real protector. If it be the will of God to protect man, a little ship may escape destruction, whereas the greatest and most perfectly constructed vessel with the best and most skillful navigator may not survive danger, such as was present on the ocean. The purpose is that people of the world may turn to God, the one protector, that human souls may rely upon his preservation and know that he is the real safety. These events happen in order, but let me back up. These events happen in order that man's faith may be increased and strengthened. These events happened in order that man's faith may be increased and strengthened. Let no one imagine that these words imply that man should not be thorough and careful in his undertakings. God has endowed man with intelligence so that he may safeguard and protect himself. Yet, withal, let him rely upon God and consider God as the one keeper.
That's the one keeper. You know, as you were reading that, I couldn't help thinking, actually, as I was reading this earlier, I couldn't help thinking about how many times, more times than I can count, that I have gone through periods of what I would call suffering. And if I really took time to think about it, most of the time, I could trace it back to bad decisions that I had made. Sometimes they just came out of nowhere. Sometimes, yeah, why is this happening to me? I don't understand why this is happening to me. But sometimes, a lot of times, I could go back and say, had I really thought about it, I would have foreseen, even if I didn't know the details, if I didn't know how it was going to play out, I would know that based on my own decisions, whether it was a moment of weakness or whatever, there's a strong likelihood that this will lead to suffering, that this is not going to turn out well. And yet, you know, a lot of times we do it anyway. Abdu'l-Baha goes on to say, when thou lookest upon thee with a perceptive eye, thou wilt note that on this dusty earth, all humankind are suffering. All humankind are suffering. Here, no man is at rest as a reward for what he hath performed in former lives, nor is there anyone so blissful as seemingly to pluck the fruit of bygone anguish. And if a human life with its spiritual being if a human life with its spiritual being were limited to this earthly span, then what would be the harvest of creation? Indeed, what would be the effects and the outcomes of divinity itself? Were such a notion true, then all created things, all contingent realities, and this whole world of being, all would be meaningless. God forbid that one should hold to such a fiction and gross error. This is Abdu'l-Baha saying this now. God forbid that one should hold to such a fiction and gross error. For just as the effects and the fruitage of the uterine life, when we're in our mother's body, when we're in our mother's womb, for just as the effects and the fruitage of the uterine life are not to be found in that dark and narrow place. Wow, I'm going to read that again. For just as the effects and the fruitage of the uterine life are not to be found in that dark and narrow place, and only when the child is transferred to this wide earth do the benefits and uses of growth and development in that previous world, again, the uterus, in that previous world become revealed. So likewise, reward and punishment, heaven and hell, requital and retribution for actions done in this present life will stand revealed in that other world beyond. And just as if human life in the womb were limited to that uterine world, existence there would be nonsensical, irrelevant, so too, if the life of this world, the deeds here done and their fruitage did not come forth in the world beyond, the whole process would be irrational and foolish. It would be like our experience here on this earth would be pointless. Know then that the Lord God possesseth invisible realms. Ooh. Know then that the Lord God possesseth invisible realms, which the human intellect can never hope to fathom, nor the mind of man conceive. I'm going to read that again. Know then that the Lord God possesseth invisible realms, which the human intellect can never hope to fathom, nor the mind of man conceive. When once thou hast cleansed the channel of thy spiritual sense from the pollution of this worldly life, I love that phrasing. When once thou hast cleansed the channel of thy spiritual sense from the pollution of this worldly life, then wilt thou breathe in the sweet sense of holiness that blow from the blissful bowers of that heavenly land. I think I feel like doing something.
Let's do it, son.
This is about suffering. This song is not about suffering. The song is about sanctuary from suffering. When I'm feeling lonely and forsaken, when the world hangs heavy on my mind, when my joy for living has been taken, come to you, Lord, and I always find sanctuary. Sanctuary, sanctuary. Oh. When my problems seem without solution, when it seems they just won't go away, when I'm overcome by life's confusion, you light my path and you prepare a way to sanctuary, sanctuary, sanctuary. Sanctuary, sanctuary, oh, sanctuary. Sometimes I lose my faith, and all I seem to do is breathe. You remove my difficulties, give me reason to believe in you. I know with you that I'm protected in the stronghold your defense. You comfort me when I'm rejected. You lift my spirits, give me confidence in your sanctuary. 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 Yeah. Sanctuary. Sanctuary. Oh. Lift my spirits, give me confidence. Ma, 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 ma. Oh. I know with you that I'm protected. Feel the stronghold of your defense. You comfort me when I'm rejected. You lift my spirits, give me confidence in your sanctuary. 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 Oh, lift my spirits, give me confidence. Lift my spirits, give me confidence. Sanctuary. Sanctuary. Yes, sanctuary. Well, again, we're talking about suffering today. And I see that Alex and Maria Carlberg have joined us. So hello, Alex and Maria. We see you out there. How are you doing? But again, today we're reading about suffering. So Daryl, if you'd be so kind as to continue from where we left off. I believe it's shall we get physical pain? Oh, yeah,
physical pain. Physical pain is a necessary accompaniment of all human existence, and as such is unavoidable. As long as there is life on earth, there will also be suffering in various forms and degrees. But suffering, although an inescapable reality, can nevertheless be utilized as a means for the attainment of happiness.
Could you read that again, please?
Yes. Suffering, although an inescapable reality, can nevertheless be utilized as a means for the attainment of happiness. This is the interpretation given to it by all the prophets and saints who, in the midst of severe tests and trials, felt happy and joyous and experienced what is best and holiest in life. Suffering is both a reminder and a guide. It stimulates us to better adapt ourselves to our environmental conditions and thus leads the way to self-improvement. In every suffering, one can find a meaning and a wisdom. In every suffering, one can find a meaning and a wisdom. But it is not always easy to find the secret of that wisdom. It is sometimes only when all our suffering has passed that we become aware of its usefulness. That is to say, we may not know the benefit of suffering until all the suffering is past. What man considers to be evil turns often to be a cause of infinite blessings. And this is due to his desire to know more than he can. God's wisdom is indeed inscrutable to us all, and it is no use pushing too far trying to discover that which shall always remain a mystery to our mind.
I got to ask you two something, Nini and Daryl. I'm looking at that line at the top of the page. Suffering is both a reminder
And a guide.
and a guide. It stimulates us to better adapt ourselves to our environmental conditions. And I guess my question is as much a statement as a question, but I'll put it in the form of a question. Can you remember some times when maybe the learning process was a form of suffering, and it was a difficult lesson, but you had to suffer to learn the lesson? I can tell you one time, while you're thinking of your possible answers, we bought a new bedroom set. We bought a new bedroom set, and it has a footboard and legs down there at the footboard, which I was not used to. I cannot tell you how many times I stubbed my toe on that footboard as I was walking around the bed, and I wasn't used to that leg being there. It probably took me about 4 or 5 times stubbing my toe. Now I can navigate it in the dark. I don't have any problems. But I mean, that's just it's a silly example, but it's one of those that, yeah, through our suffering, that's how we learn. It's that reminder and a guide. And maybe it's a reminder and a guide of not, well, it certainly is a reminder and a guide of not just, okay, how to do things, but of also who our real dependence needs to be on in this existence. Needs to be, we need to be depending on God, of course. I just thought how about you, Nini? Any time where any substantial times when you can think of, yeah, the suffering that I went through, I learned a good lesson?
Well, to me, the suffering remind me of how little small I am.
Yeah.
So I have to depend on my God.
Yeah.
Which is, get closer to him and see wider. Because, often I think I'm so strong and I could do it. And the more you think you're strong, your I should say eyesight or your brain sight or whatever is so narrow. But then when you fail, you're in pain, and you could see wider that because God is guiding.
Yeah. How about you, Daryl?
I kind of have a broad brush stroke of this. As a younger man, I believed that the key to life was the absence of pain. And the older I got, and the more deep into the realization that there truly is no pain there is no gain without pain, I had to give up that notion of the key to life is the absence of pain. Because if I look at my life and look at any progress that I have made socially, physically, spiritually, economically, all of it came with pain.
Yeah.
So now I cannot say that the key to life is the absence of pain. I understand that without pain, there truly is no gain.
Yeah.
So and there's no growth.
Good point.
So
yeah.
Just like no darkness, then you won't see the light.
Yeah.
Right.
I talks about that a lot. How there are certain things you can only know the positive outcome by experiencing the negative, having the negative experience, and being able to appreciate the positive opposite of it. Go ahead, Daryl. What's that? Man's physical existence. That's a pretty important passage. Well, it's all important. I always say that's important. Let's face it, it's all important. But that next one it jumps out at me too. So go ahead.
Man's physical existence on this earth is a period during which the moral exercise of his free will is tried and tested in order to prepare his soul for the other worlds of God. I'm going to say that again.
Yes.
Man's physical existence on this earth is a period during which the moral exercise of his free will is tried and tested in order to prepare his soul for the other worlds of God. And we must welcome affliction and tribulations as opportunities for improvement in our eternal selves.
And that's coming from the Universal House of Justice. Hello, Sue. I see Sue out there. Sue Boyette, she's joining us today. Hello, Sue. That's a hard pill to swallow, though, isn't it?
Well, like I said, there's no pain without gain. And, this says, we're being tested in this life, and the trials and tribulations that we suffer in this life are just preparing us for what comes next.
Yeah.
All calamities and afflictions have been created for man so that he may spurn this mortal world, a world to which he is much attached. When he experiences severe trials and hardships, then his nature will recoil, and he will desire the eternal realm, a realm which is sanctified from all afflictions and calamities.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says, "Suffer ye little children that come unto me." This is God saying, this is what it is. And I don't care how old you are, in God's eyes, you are still a child.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah, that is true. To continue, Abdu'l-Baha goes on to say, the mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried by suffering. The mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried. I'm sorry. Sometimes I think things that I'd be better off not saying out loud. But I read that line, the mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried by suffering. And then I thought, then I should be a genius. But anyway.
No, but you know what? Because from suffer, we could understand each other better.
Yes.
Because what I go through, I could help other people who go through the same or whatever they went through.
True.
They could help me. That's a God's way to draw the love appear in it.
Yes. That's true. But the mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried by suffering. The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow. The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow. The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow, the better the harvest will be. There's a song for you.
yeah.
The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow, the better the harvest will be. Just as the plow furrows the earth deeply, purifying it of weeds and thistles, so suffering and tribulation free man from the petty affairs of this worldly life until he arrives at a state of complete detachment. To attain eternal happiness, one must suffer.
Say that again.
To attain eternal happiness, one must suffer. He who has reached the state of self-sacrifice has true joy. Temporal joy will vanish. I'm going to say that again. To attain eternal happiness, one must suffer. He who has reached the state of self-sacrifice has true joy. Temporal joy will vanish. And for anyone who thinks, well, do I have to suffer all the time? And how bad is it going to be? How bad does it have to be? Here's a brief statement from Baha'u'llah. God hath never burdened any soul beyond its power. God hath never burdened any soul beyond its power. And there are times when perhaps we might feel like, this is more than I can handle. Let's face it, sometimes it does feel that way. And we may even question when we're going through difficult times if God has just forgotten all about us. But in the Bible, in Luke, it actually says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 farthings? And not one of them is forgotten before God. But even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. fear not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. Even when we know that we're going through really tough times, and let's face it, it does get tough. We have not been forgotten by God. And this is, I want to say that we have a dear friend who is at this point transitioning into the next world, if she hasn't already, Karima. And I know this is one of her favorite songs, and it was also one of my mother's favorite songs. It's a well-known Christian hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home, when Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. And His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on His goodness, I lose my doubts and fears. Though by the path He leadeth, but one step I may see. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I am free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Even when we're going through tough times, He's still there. He's still watching. He's still giving us strength and helping us through these difficult times. Why don't you go ahead and continue?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Tests Tests are a means by which a soul is measured as to its fitness and proven out by its own acts. Tests are a means by which a soul is measured as to its fitness and proven out by its own acts. God knows its fitness beforehand and also His unpreparedness, but man, with an ego, would not believe himself unfit unless proof were given to him. Wow. God knows its fitness beforehand, the unfitness, in the fitness of the soul. God knows its fitness beforehand and also His unpreparedness. But man with an ego would not believe himself unfit unless proof were given him. Consequently, his susceptibility to evil is proven to him when he falls into the tests. And the tests are continued until the soul realizes its own unfitness. Then remorse and regret tend to root out the weakness. The same test comes again in greater degree until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength and the power to overcome evil has been established. Shoghi Effendi says, and this is in response, I believe, to someone's letter, you seem to complain about the calamities that have befallen humanity. In the spiritual development of man, a stage of purgation, of purging, a stage of purgation is indispensable, for it is while passing through it that the overrated material needs are made to appear in their proper light. Until society learns to attribute more importance to spiritual matters, it would never be fit to enter the golden era foretold by Baha'u'llah. The present calamities are parts of this process of purgation. Through them alone will man learn his lesson. They are to teach the nations. So we need to point out that this isn't just on an individual level, these tests. These tests are on the global level, on the societal level. They are to teach the nations that they have to view things internationally. They are to make the individual attribute more importance to his moral than to his material welfare. Shoghi Effendi goes on to say, suffering of one kind or another seems to be the portion of this man, of man in this world. Suffering of one kind or another seems to be the portion of man in this world. Even the beloved ones, that's capitalized, meaning the manifestations of God. Even the beloved ones, the prophets of God, have never been exempt from the ills that are to be found in our world. Poverty, disease, bereavement, they seem to be part of the polish God employs to make us finer and enable us.
Let me say that again.
Okay. Poverty, disease, bereavement, they seem to be part of the polish God employs to make us finer and enable us to reflect more of his attributes. No doubt in the future, when the foundation of society is laid according to the divine plan and men become truly spiritualized, a vast amount of our present ills and problems will be remedied. We who toil now are paving the way for a far better world. And this knowledge must uphold and strengthen us through every trial. I'll say that again. We who toil now are paving the way for a far better world. And this knowledge must uphold and strengthen us through every trial. So if we want to end, or obviously there is no end, but lessen suffering, we can't just think of it on an individual level. We have to think about it on a global scale, on a societal scale, because that's where we are as far as the age of mankind. I mean, that's what we're told. The prophets went through all of the difficulty. We're not exempt from it. But when we decide that as a race of people, mankind, when we decide to emphasize, again, spiritual attributes over material gain and material wealth, a lot of the problems of this world will be solved. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Now, you started out today with the unity prayer. I kind of wish you had saved it. I won't ask you to say it again, but this is basically saying, if you want to end some of the suffering, unify yourselves. See beyond yourself. As Baha'u'llah says, let your vision be world embracing. Yes. You have to look at it on an international scale as far as even suffering is concerned, and not just individual. At this time, anyone who would like to share a prayer or a song or one of your favorite passages from some philosophical or spiritual literature, this is that time. And Camby's, it's time for I think we should put it forth as a special feature. It's time for our Camby's moment. Do you have something for us today, Camby's?
Sure, I have a prayer to thank God.
Please.
خداوندا چگونه تو را شکر نماییم نعمای تو نامتناهی است و شکرانه ما محدود چگونه محدود شکر غیر محدود نماید عاجزیم از شکر الطاف تو و به کمال عجز توجه به ملکوت تو می نماییم و طلب ازدیاد و نعمت و عطای تو می کنیم تویی دهنده و بخشنده و توانا
Thank you, Convenience.
You're welcome.
Shiva's not with us today.